Welcome to the Now to Next podcast, where every week we provide wisdom on how to press play after a traumatic pause. If you are starting up or starting over in any area of your life or your business, subscribe and listen as we share real life stories from actual people who have pressed play and are winning after nearly losing it all. And now, your host, Octoria Robinson.
Good day, friends. Are you ready to press play? I am so excited. I know you're like, is she never not excited? I am actually excited to introduce our guest today, Shawn Henderson. He's here with us. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, and I'm excited to be here.
That's that theme word, excited, guys. We are excited. I can't wait for you to get to know him. So without further ado, I'll let him share a little bit about himself.
Oh, my name is Shawn Henderson, pastor, playwright, business owner, originally born in Chicago, been in the Tampa, Florida area for about 5 years, and it's been a journey. Just put it that way. It has been a journey.
I'm sure you're going to share more about this journey with us here in just a few minutes. I'm quite confident that those that are listening today, you can share in that your life has been a journey as well. Well, good news. This is again why we produce the Now to Next podcast, because we recognize that trauma happens. Yeah. It's unwelcome, it's unfortunate, and it's uninvited. But it happens. The key to it, though, is how do you press play? How do you move forward after something traumatic happens in your world? Well, we're hoping that in sharing from Shawn today, you'll find some encouragement to press play after something traumatic has happened in your life. So let's get started, Shawn. Amen. Talk to us about your journey, man.
Well, my journey, and I'm going to touch on this real quick. I hear a lot of people say, well, they grew up without a father. That seems to become kind of the norm, unfortunately, today. But I grew up without a father or mother.
Oh, my goodness.
I was actually raised by my great-grandmother. And I was taken in at the age of 3. So I went through my journey starting there, feeling abandoned. So I went through life with the spirit of abandonment on me. And it was even to the point where I was surrounded by women so much because my great-grandmother was a beautician, so I was always in a beauty shop. So I was a beauty shop baby. So I had a complex of not being able to speak to men. I would feel intimidated in high school, growing up. I would feel intimidated. But to women, I can speak easily because I grew up around women. So as I grew older and older and older, because I saw my great-grandmother own her own business, I started my business right out of high school. And it was an electronic business. And that electronic business did very well. And I hired this guy. And this guy, I saw him doing so many things in the store that he shouldn't have been. The way he talked to customers. And to be honest, I saw him trying to sell some marijuana or something outside of the store. And I said, hey, this can't happen. And I fired the guy. Well, I guess the guy, he decided, well, you know what? I'm going to get even. So 2 weeks later, 1 week he came back in and he shook my hand. I'm thinking everything's okay. And he walks back out the store. And a week later, a few days later, he comes back in. I'm on the phone closing up the shop, me and another employee. And it's about 7 o'clock because we close at 7. So I went to the front door. I locked the door. And it has one of those locks where you have to lock it with a key. So I come back and I sit at my desk and I call my girlfriend in college at the time. And her sister answered. And her sister says, oh, she's at the pep rally game or whatever it was. And as I'm talking, in the back of the store, 2 guys walk in. And one of the guys, both of them had masks on when they first came in. And they walked up behind me and took a gun. And the back of the gun hit me as hard as he could on the left side of my head. and I dropped the phone and I fell to the floor. And when I fell to the floor, both of these guys jumped on the back of me and proceeded to beat me, one with a gun and one with his fist. So then all of a sudden, one guy backed off, but the other guy with the gun kept going because he was enraged. And he put the gun to the back of my head, point blank range, and pulled the trigger. And that gun, it was so loud. It was like a moment just froze. It was like slow motion. And blood just came out the front of my face. Now I'm on all fours and he's on my back. And I remember thinking to myself, I just been shot. So I reached up and I grabbed my face and I started feeling my face. And I kept saying, well, I still have feeling, so I'm still alive. And I got up and I pushed the guy off of me. And I jumped off this platform because I didn't want to get shot in the back. And I started running backwards towards the store. He runs up towards me and he takes off his mask. And I realized this is the guy I just fired.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm not going to mention his name to protect the family. But he runs towards me and he's pointing a gun at me. And he's waving the gun around. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I get to the front of the store to run out, and it was locked. I had just locked the door.
Oh, my goodness.
And I had another employee in there. He went into shock, and he just hid behind the sofa that was there. So he can hear all this commotion. And so he catches up with me, and he grabs me in my chest. And he takes the gun, and he starts beating me in the head. Now, mind you, I just got shot. So blood, I'm drenched with blood. So he's beating me and beating me and beating me. And I'm losing strength. And he looks at me and he says, oh, you're going to die today. And he puts the gun right on the bridge of my nose, right between my eyes. And at that point, I had nothing left. And I figured today I'm going to die. And because I was raised in the church, and I called myself a Christian and all that, but I wasn't. I really didn't understand born again. I really wasn't living that, but because I was raised in the church. Mm-hmm. When he put that gun between the middle of my nose, I dropped my hands. I don't know if I said it or I thought it. But I said, save me, Jesus. And he pulled that trigger and that gun jammed.
My God. Wow.
It jammed. And when it jammed, I opened my eyes and I said, and I saw him trying to fix this gun. So he was determined to kill me. And all I could do was start trying to knock the gun out of his hands, just trying to knock. And the other guy was standing in the back of the store. And he kept saying, come on, let's get out of here. I can hear the police coming because it was a big storefront. So it was a window and people start stopping in their cars, calling the police. So he was so determined. He wanted to kill me. And I just had an alarm system put on the building. It was right by my head. So I reached up and hit the panic button and the alarm went off and he ran out the back door. And a lot of people would think that this story ends there, but it does not.
Oh, my goodness, it doesn't?
It does not. So the police, they came in, and so my friend opened the door, and he's in shock. He's screaming. He's screaming. The police is tearing up the place because they don't know what's going on. They can't find him. He runs out the back door. They sit me down on a speaker because it was an electronic store. So the paramedics come in and the first thing they ask me is, who is the president of the United States? And I went to talk and I went, oh, and realized I had totally lost the function to speak. And I could not speak for 6 months.
Wow.
And when I lost the function to speak, tears immediately ran down my face because you don't realize how important something is till you lose it. And those tears came down my face, and they rushed me to the hospital. And I remember they took me in to do the CAT scan. And I wasn't sure if what was going on. I wasn't sure if the bullet grazed me. I wasn't sure because I never went unconscious. So the lady, she puts me in the CAT scan, and she says, wait a minute, we got to do this again. So she does it again. And she comes to me, she says, I don't want you to be nervous, but don't move. She said, I have to get the doctor. So she goes and get the doctor, and the doctor comes in. He looks at everything. He says, I don't want you to panic. So I want you to stay calm. He says, but you have a bullet in your skull, so many centimeters from your brain. And if you make any sudden moves, this bullet can come out, travel, and kill you. Of course, now the heart rate goes up, right? So they take me in intensive care, and I'm there. And my great-grandmother.
Is this not the one you were raised with?
Yeah, this is the one I was raised with. My great-grandmother was in church an hour and a half away in Aurora, Illinois. So they call the church, and they bring her out of service. And they talk to her. My sister called, and she falls to the ground. Shawn's just been shot. The whole church stops. They go into prayer service. Her and two more pastors get in the car. What normally takes an hour and a half, they got back in a little over 30 minutes, driving over 100 miles an hour, the hand of God with them. Now, I'm in intensive care. I hear the elevator, ding, and all I hear coming down the hallway, in the name of Jesus, you can't have my son. And she's casting everything out. And I'm embarrassed, I'm sitting there with a bullet in my head, but I'm embarrassed. Because she comes down the hallway. She's calling down heaven. And she comes in, and I had to sleep with that because they didn't have a brain specialist. They couldn't get into the next day. Well, he came in, he did remove the bullet. And I went 6 months not being able to speak. I had to write things down, and I lost my business, and I went into a depression. Well, 6 months later, they brought him back from New Jersey on $1 million attempted murder bond.
The person that shot you.
Correct. Yeah, I'm almost finished here. So he brought him back. So we go through a week of trial. The newspaper is there. Everybody's there. Now I'm kind of able to speak. It has slurs and everything. And so I testify. I never went unconscious. I saw him. The employee, he testifies, yeah, it was him. I hid behind a couch, but I know him because we worked together. I heard his voice. I heard the whole commotion. The jury came back and found him not guilty. I told you this story goes deeper.
Not guilty?
Not guilty. Even the store owner across the street who came to call the police, he saw them. Not guilty. His attorney's strategy was, I'm going to throw so many lies at the jury till they don't know what to believe. So he started talking about, it was dark. You couldn't see. It was 7 o'clock at night. It was two guys. How you know which one is one? So he brought in reasonable doubt. But I was 100% sure who shot me. So when that happened, do you know, I locked up and couldn't speak anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Are you serious?
I locked up right in the courtroom, and I started blaming God. I was like, God, you know he did this. You saw him, and you let him go. That's exactly what I said. I said, how could you? And I went immediately to blaming God. And I remember they rushed me upstairs to the state's attorneys, and I was sitting there, and the hatred that was on my face. And I remember the pastor that was there, she says, I could see the devil in your eyes. I remember her saying, I could see the fire, the devil in your eyes. And I could not speak. So her and my great grandmother says, I want you to follow me, because I had drove there. And I, at that point, I didn't want to follow them. I didn't care. So we went to this church. It was on a Friday. Went to this church. I sat there. The pastor comes out. He says, you know what? I heard the broadcast. We just want to let you know that you're welcome here. There's nothing we can tell you that can ease the pain. Mm-hmm. You're just welcome here. I didn't want to hear nothing about a church. Get away from me. Didn't want to hear anything about a pastor. So I go home. Somebody brings me a gun. And they says, well, this guy is out. I'm going to bring you a gun. Protect yourself. A week later, I'm sitting on my bed and I said, you know what? I'm going to go find this guy. And then the devil comes in. He says, no, take your life. Take your life. And I have the gun in my hand. So I set the gun back under the bed and I get in my car, and I'm coming to an end right now. I get in my car, I drive around, don't know where I'm going. I end up in that parking lot church.
Wow.
I walk in the door. I didn't know the church, had never been there. I walk in the door. Some people were there having Bible study. The pastor comes outside and the people come out and they say, we've been praying for you. We were just praying for you. And I have been blaming God, saying, God, you did this, you did this, you did this. And I remember the girl opened the Bible and I kept saying, God, you don't love me. You don't love me. And the first scripture she shows me, Jesus loves you. Tears came down my face. I was baptized that day in the name of Jesus, and I've been saved ever since. On fire for God.
Wow. Wow. Listeners, you may know that I was unusually quiet during Shawn's communication of his story because it is captivating. If you could see the person that's sitting in front of me right now, you'd be as captivated as I am as well, because he just doesn't look like anything that he just shared. Goodness gracious. Thank you for sharing that, Shawn. Yeah. Now, you spoke about how, like, a lot of things led to you landing in that parking lot.
Yes.
But I'd like for you to kind of express the emotional impact that this whole experience had on you. Because for me, my mouth is probably my number one asset for number one reasons. Like I can't describe how many reasons I like to talk. I couldn't imagine not being able to speak for 6 months and then it not being due to anything I've done, but someone violating my life, trying to take my life, all because they got fired. Right. What kind of impact did that have on you emotionally as a man? Right.
Well, it was very depressing. I went through a period, like I said, where I thought about taking my life. And when I lost my business, I couldn't speak. I couldn't communicate. It is very painful. It was a very painful time. And I don't wish it on anybody. And it's funny because today I use that same voice to meet a lot of people and to reach a lot of people. And I tell you, it was very hurtful. Yeah.
So what was the darkest day like for you after that experience?
You know, the darkest day was right after they let him go. I saw him. We passed cars in the street, and I saw him, and he smiled in my face. And I know I had lost my business. You know, now what I'm going to do. And it was really a dark time in my life because I had to start all over in my life. And it's funny because I saw him 2 years later after God had restored everything and I was moving to a place. I didn't see him. His uncle came down the stairs and his uncle says, Shawn, I just want to let you know our family didn't have anything to do with that. And you know what happened to him, right? And I said, no, he died of a heart attack.
Wow.
He was in his 20s. And by that time, I had forgiven him because thank God for my great grandmother. She started taking me to church, telling me, give this testimony. You have to forgive him. I remember I would stand up in church and say, I forgive him, but I really didn't. I really didn't. But that was the thing I was supposed to do. But as I got more and more in the Word and understanding what forgiveness meant for me, then I was able to forgive him. But at first, I really didn't.
I don't think anyone who's listening can blame you. That was super duper traumatic. You almost lost your life. You did lose your business. I'm sure that deeply affected your quality of life in terms of what you could do.
Yeah.
And you were left with this whole experience and still with the challenge of starting over.
Yeah.
With the pain and the weight of what you walked through still on your back.
Yeah.
So what did that starting over look like for you?
It was painful because being a business owner, now I had to get back into the workforce, and now taking on temp jobs and not being able to pay my rent sometimes, when I just had a business that I was profiting so well. I was driving 3 cars, and now I'm working temp jobs, all because of this. And I'm telling you, it was hard. It was tough. And you would get angry, and why did this happen to me? Mm-hmm. And, I would have never thought where I am today back then. God had a purpose and a plan. Mm-hmm. But it was a very dark moment in my life.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So for that starting over period, because I'm thinking about the listeners, when do you really feel like between when the incident occurred and you got to that determination and it was real, not just the right thing to do, but it was real and you were motivated and really genuinely passionate about doing the work in terms of starting over in that place? How much time between the incident and that decision?
I would say really about 3 to 4 years. A pastor in Illinois, his name was Pastor Hunt. He was a military guy, mm-hmm. and he took me in as a son. And this man groomed me. He disciplined me. And I went through his ministry, the school, the theology school at his church, and he ordained me. And then God sent that man into my life. So I would say about 3 to 4 years. And he knows who to send you when you need them. And I thank God for this man and his wife. So that time is when my life changed, when I started getting into ministry full time and becoming a youth pastor and things like that. But he disciplined me. Mm-hmm. I think that was the biggest thing. He disciplined me. And I didn't like it, but I needed it. He was very stern. And the little things that I grew up, because I grew up without a father. Mm-hmm. So it was little things that he was purging, he was getting out. And I would be mad sometimes, but now that I'm grown, I needed it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 3 years, and thank God. Yeah. This incredible man and his family came into your world to be a part of that mm-hmm. process. But how do you imagine that actually stuck with you? Because you're now here in Florida. How long ago in total number of years was this incident?
Wow, it has been a while. Now I'm going to tell my age. I was 24, so I was 24 when it actually happened. So that was 26 years ago. It's funny because recently God has really been bringing this testimony to forefront. And wow. I've told this testimony probably 2018, 2019, more than I have in 10 years.
Wow.
And I believe he's using that testimony to help other people. Yeah.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I believe it's helping someone that's listening right now. I believe there's someone out here who's been affected by violence, whether it was from using weapons or someone violently beating you, raping you, something, and you felt like that moment was permanent and impossible for you to move forward from. But we're so grateful to have this story in Shawn that 26 years later, he's still living with hope and living empowered and living a life filled with purpose after this traumatic encounter with a really angry person who tried to kill him. And that's the word that I want to hone in on. If you're able to hear, kind of like where he said in this story, I loved it. He says, I touched my face and I realized that I was still alive. Maybe you need to touch your face right now. and remind yourself that you still have a life to live, and make that decision to actually do the work to enjoy and find meaning in the rest of your life. What I love about what Shawn has said, he didn't allow a moment to become the rest of his life. He allowed that moment to be what it was. He said he had struggled with depression. He got angry. He blamed God. I've expressed that on different interviews where I blamed God regarding things. He processed everything, but he didn't stay stuck in that trauma. Shawn, the same people that I'm speaking to right now, someone who's been affected by some form of violence, and they feel like, oh my God, my life is just ruined. I can never, ever have the life I thought I could. You lost it all.
Right.
To include almost your life or your quality of it. Yeah. But yet you sit here today, just look vibrant, really strong, really positive. What would you say to that person? They're where you were 26 years ago. What would you say to them now?
What I would say is God is faithful to his word. Mm-hmm. What the enemy meant for bad, God will turn it around for good. You know, I even encountered over $100,000 worth of hospital bills that I could not pay. So it may be somebody that went through tragedies that caused them debt as well. Let me tell you, that same voice that I couldn't speak with is the same voice God uses to minister to people and lead them to Christ. Mm-hmm. If you submit to Christ and you submit to his will and his way, the enemy will have to repay you sevenfold what he took from you. And today, now I'm a business owner. I'm a playwright. I'm a pastor. And I wouldn't have saw that coming from that tragedy. Mm-hmm. See, if I had to do it all over again to be where I am today, I'll take that bullet again.
Wow.
I would take it again to be in the presence of God.
That's exceptional. I'm sure they're like, where's the book?
It's coming. It's coming. Yes.
This story, I'm sure there's so much more to it than what we actually had time to share today. But for the pieces that you did share, Shawn, on behalf of our listeners, I want to say thank you. At one point, I felt like hope just filling me up from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And I know there's someone who is in need of hearing this story today. So we just thank you and appreciate your strength, your resilience, and your courage and the bravery that it took to survive such a traumatic event that now is being used as a tool in people's lives to provide hope and guidance after trauma and this capacity. Now, for our listeners that were really moved by your story and want to follow and grow with you in your journey, Shawn, how can they connect with you?
Amen. I have a website. My ministry website is www.Shawn.Henderson. That's SHAWN, ShawnHenderson.org, or on Facebook at Shawn Henderson Ministries. That's a way you can connect with him.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you guys, you want to connect to him. This story is just the tip of the iceberg of what he has in terms of capacity to help people in healing and being transformed after trauma. I encourage you, use him as a resource. Reach out to him. Follow him. I do. And I have been blessed just in this short time that I've gotten to know him as well. So remember this, my friends. I know trauma is difficult, and again, it feels impossible to overcome. But we want you to know that that does not have to be the end of your story. Well, we believe the end of your story should look and feel like it's triumph. It's in you to win. So let's win it, guys. Until we connect again, you have an extraordinary rest of your week.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast today. For all things Launch Now, log on to launchnowus.com for info on products, resources, and upcoming events. We are looking forward to connecting with you and enriching your life through our next episode. And remember, you have what it takes to press play. Have a super duper epic week.